I'll be totally honest with you, I feel kind of weird doing a video that isn't World War II related because we've actually had a long-standing track record of sticking to this current game of World War II, and I'm absolutely loving it. You guys can of course have your own differences of opinions if that is what you have, but I for one am enjoying what we have at the moment, though of course it can get repetitive. I'm still enjoying it for what it's worth. But that said, that's something in which we have Call of Duty World War II as a continuous thing at the moment throughout the year. But one thing that has popped up as of recently is sort of a phenomenon in the Call of Duty world as to why this is happening, what it actually could mean, and it's perhaps something that you might not have expected to hear about, say, a couple of days ago before this all entirely started. That is that Black Ops 1, the original Black Ops from 2010, almost 8 years at this point because it's released in November, obviously, but almost 8 years ago, we got this title, and it's sitting at over 100,000 players currently online as of making this. And that's something that this isn't just a number that's popped up today. It's been like this for the past couple of days. And that is where everybody is so blown away. An 8-year-old game, one that isn't necessarily the closest thing that we've had in recent years, for somebody to say, you know what, I actually really enjoy this game. I didn't give it much of a chance in the last couple of years because it was Call of Duty. I just didn't like it at the time. It's not one of those things where, say, people went back to Ghost and really enjoyed it right before World War II. This is 8 years old. So why is it like this, and should it be something that you take advantage of? Well, that's what we're gonna be talking about here today in this one. And again, a little bit of a break from the World War II content. We're gonna be getting back to it, obviously. And that's still the main focus here up on the channel, but this is such a strange anomaly that I wanted to talk about it with you guys and get your thoughts and feedback, but also relay my thoughts here on this and what it could mean in the meantime before it dies down once again. So that said, let's jump right into it. So if we were to take a look at any of the titles in Call of Duty past a certain point in time, a lot of them will be hovering right around the few thousand mark to maybe up around 20,000. So that's something that Black Ops falls in that category of these games that aren't necessarily forgotten, but don't have near as much support anymore towards them, and the player base is dwindling in the sense because they are so old. The consoles aren't really supported all that much anymore by any developers, and therefore they're kind of just remnants of the franchise's past. Though what does work in the favor of Black Ops and Black Ops 2 are that they are backwards compatible on the Xbox One, which unfortunately PlayStation 4 members cannot capitalize on, but that's something that kind of helps out those titles. Whereas if you were to take a look at, say, the Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, that is something that they don't have that backwards compatibility. And of course we had Modern Warfare Remastered, but the other two, they're just still, once again, only exclusive to those last generation consoles. So these numbers obviously will be dwindling compared to others, but the strange part as to why this is such a big deal or such an anomaly is that the best that we've seen out of any of these other titles that once again are kind of in the past there, they're not in this past 3-year cycle, that everybody kind of gravitates towards those games more specifically than any other. And of course Black Ops 3 is still probably heavily played. I couldn't tell you how many though because they hit the player count. But that said, Black Ops 2 was the last title in which we have this massive influx of players, and right now that's sitting around the 20 to 30,000 mark of players depending on the day, depending on how many people end up logging in. So to have an astronomical jump of 80,000 players on a game that's even older, that's just weird. So the way that I can see this breaking down in my mind is coming down to 3 different avenues in which we can approach this. 3 possible answers for why we may end up having, at any point in time, we could have 100 to 110 to 120,000 people on Black Ops. The first of which being that maybe it is something that is hype for Black Ops 4. I've seen a lot of people in the COD community already start to make videos on Black Ops 4, the theory behind it, and whether or not you want to buy into the fact that it may or may not be called Black Ops 4, it might be a new IP, whatever it may be, that's something in which Treyarch definitely has some mad appeal behind each of their titles, and with now some of the potential shortcomings of World War II, people are already starting that COD cycle of where they get excited for the next title, to which by this time next year, they might be again looking forward to the next game even. So that's something that just happens every single year, but that may be a reason why we end up having a player count increase, is because people are talking about the next Treyarch title. They're talking about potentially a Vietnam to modern day release, and this is something that Black Ops is the closest thing we have towards that. Black Ops 2 is near future in 2025, but that's something that still you can relate more so to the modern combats in a Vietnam or potentially modern warfare game, but because it is a Treyarch title, it might just naturally gravitate towards the last Vietnam title. So that is why Black Ops might have this influx of players. Whether or not I buy into it, I'm not entirely sure yet. But of course, another second main reason is the fact that there's a ton of YouTubers making content on it. I know a bunch of my personal friends have already made content on it. They've gotten a ton of views off of it, and thus a lot of people may have this notion of a resurgence in Black Ops in the sense that people are seeing more, people are jumping on, and then their friends are seeing that they're jumping on, and so on and so forth. There's a giant game of telephone, essentially, in which this information just passes down the pipeline, so people might be more prone to jump on and try it out for themselves. But to me, I don't think that counts for an 80,000 player increase almost overnight. I think that's something that might go a little bit deeper here. And where I might potentially think that this comes down to, and I could be totally wrong, this is just a theory that I've seen and one that I've discussed with some of my friends on YouTube once again, and that I kind of buy into, that maybe the player count is just bugged. Maybe this isn't an accurate depiction of how many players are actually online within Black Ops, though of course it might still be an increase because of the factors we already mentioned about, but maybe this is in fact just bugged, because 110,000 players would put it up there right around probably where World War II is on a daily consistent basis. And that's something that if you take a look at, once again, an 8-year-old game versus a game that came out 2 months ago, that's just a weird comparison at its core. And that's something also that there may even be factual data behind this. If you want to take a look at different graphs for the player counts, and the one that I found that came across perfectly to get the illustration down pat for me to see exactly what this looks like came actually from some of the Steam databases. Now, granted, what you have to bear in mind is that Steam and the player counts there are always much lower than that of the console counterparts, because PC, though the game started out on PC, it is slowly and completely almost shifted to consoles being favored for everybody, and the player count coming mostly from there. But if you take a look at just, say, a month or two back in the comparable player counts, Black Ops is actually middle to lower of the pack compared to the other games, with games like Modern Warfare 2, which is older than Black Ops, coming in with almost 3 times of what Black Ops has in the total player count. And though once again it is sort of a smaller comparison in terms of the ratio there, that's something that still, if there were this many players online, you'd end up seeing a massive influx also on PC, theoretically. So to be able to see a massive jump in terms of leaps and bounds over everything else in a very short period of time, to me it doesn't necessarily add up entirely. But again, that's all theory and speculation. But also one thing that might buy into this or be more evidence for this is even my personal experience. Now, I took to Twitter and talked about this a little bit, and it was something that not everybody shared the same sentiment or the same experience, but it took me, whenever I jumped onto Black Ops earlier in the day to try and get some footage for you that you'd be seeing in the background, that's something in which it took me 45 minutes to get more than one player to connect to me at a time. And that's something that for 21,000 people being online at that very moment playing Team Deathmatch, the playlist that I was in, you figure that it wouldn't take that long to find a match. Now, eventually things started to kickstart, but of course, we also did not have full lobbies. We ended up having, I think, at the very max during the times in which I was playing today, it was a 4v4. So that's something that doesn't necessarily bode well in terms of that entire 110,000 players online, but maybe that's just my own experience. I thought I had an open NAT type and great connection, but perhaps something went wrong and where after checking, it changed or something like that. That's just something that I can report as potential evidence to maybe push this argument a little bit further, but at the same point in time, I know that, as we talk about many times, the sample size for that sort of specific testing needs to be way larger before we can come to any conclusions on that. Because, once again, I'm a small fish in a massive pond, essentially in a 110,000 player pond. But regardless of how this turns out, whether these numbers are accurate or not, Black Ops is getting that residual push from views and everything from different YouTube videos, different people talking about it on Twitter, whatever social media you may end up following. So regardless of what the player numbers are, if they're accurate, or if we actually might just have 20,000 people, maybe 10,000 people, and it shows an extra 100,000 people for whatever reason, so long as this is being actively pushed by people that have influence in the community, you're gonna see a resurgence a little bit within this. And so right now is probably the best time compared to any other in recent times to go back and play what I think is a great title. And if you guys have any enjoyment with it and you guys want to check it out once again for yourself, of course you're still going to run into potentially those people that are modding because it's still available on 360 and that firmware is incredibly easy to work backends on compared to current generation consoles. But overall, the experience of playing Black Ops 1 again can be experienced in potentially a resurgence here with more players that's easier to find, games and everything like that. So if you guys want to check it out, again, now is as good a time as any, and I definitely recommend it because it is a fantastic title to this day. I still love this game. It's up there in my top 3, so I have a lot of fun with it. I'm gonna be definitely playing a little bit here of it more while I have the chance. And so that said, that's we're gonna wrap it up. What do you guys think here out of this? Do you think that any of these 3 explanations I gave could be the potential reasoning for why we have this air quote resurgence of players, in the sense that we have probably 100,000 player increase on Black Ops, or do you think it's something else entirely? To which, if you do, let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. But that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you guys check out Black Ops while it is booming a little bit right now. But if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like down below. And of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing here regarding Call of Duty, mostly Call of Duty World War II, but maybe we'll jump back to stuff like this every so often. So if any of it interests you, make sure that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected from outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. But let's end out of the way. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.